Alrighty. Hi, welcome to our Marketers Content Playbook Session Q&A. In his content playbook session, owner of Top Line Results, Todd Hockenberry shared his insights on inbound organization and ideas, focusing on why companies should align their mission, strategies, action plans, and tools with the way the buyers think, learn, discover, and purchase. Todd, thank you for all your time you have put into your presentation. Let's start by having you give a short recap, and then we can open up the floor to questions. Does that sound okay with you?
Sounds great.
All right.
Well, I think the presentation is about inbound, right? The idea that there's principles behind why people are attracted to certain companies and certain organizations and why they're not, or why they're repelled or turned away. And inbound is something that's been around for a while, mostly in the marketing side, but it really impacts your entire organization. For example, if your onboarding process is not good, you're going to turn away customers. Or if your service department isn't up to speed, right, you're going to turn away customers. There's a different way of doing things. And it's not so much about what you want, but it's about what they want. Inbound is attracting people to you and doing the things they want, when they want, and how they want. And in the world today, I hope all of your questions talk about what's going on now, because there's a lot of things that are changing fast.
Definitely. And then talking about customers and bringing them into your brand, what are ways that companies can stand out through inbound marketing across their competition or competitors?
I think the number one thing right now is it's really basic stuff, right? Are you being helpful? And again, we're 5 months into this mess, and companies are either surviving, they're trying to survive, they're kind of trying to maintain, or they're thriving. I've got 2 clients that I've had that have worked with us for years that are having their best months ever the last few months. And so everybody's changed. The world's different for people. So if you're running the same old marketing campaigns, same old ads, the same old content, and you're not putting yourself in their shoes thinking about how you can help them right now, because the way you help them right now may not be the same way you helped them 6 months ago or even 3 months ago. So it's all about empathy and putting yourself in their shoes. And if I have to call your company and get the 17 buttons I got to press to get to a human being, you're not helping me. You're wasting my time, right? If you don't have chat on your website right now where I can get to somebody like that and you can start answering my questions, forget about it. I'm glad I brought up chat. Thanks for bringing that up, Todd. I have a client we just started a chat service with this week. And on a normal week, they would get somewhere about 15 to 20 contact us forms submitted on their website per day. When we set up chat, they got less. They got about 8 or 9, but they got 20 to 25 chats. They were actually almost doubling their connections through the website, direct connections through the website, not counting phone calls, by just using chat. Because why? People don't want to wait for an email to go sit on somebody's desk. They want an answer right now. They want to talk to somebody right now. And that urgency has amped up in this current environment. And if you're not thinking about how you can attract people to you and start to help them and help them quickly the way they want to be helped, then you're going to be deemed irrelevant, because guess what? I'm 10 seconds away or 3 seconds away from your 5 top competitors, right? We all know this, right? But I still see so many companies that don't respond that way and don't market and promote themselves to the world that way. They know these things are true, but they just don't do it.
Yes, that is great advice for all businesses out there. And another question that we had pop up in the chat was, why is today a great opportunity for leaders to build a customer-focused culture that will position businesses for growth?
Well, all the things that we just said, plus the fact that competition is tougher and broader than ever before. Your competition can come from anywhere. There's businesses popping up, there's contractors, there's freelancers. Even the big companies, right? People are nipping at their heels with new technology. It's easy to start up a company. It's super easy to start a business. I live in Florida. The barrier, if you have $200, you can register a business with the state of Florida, and you can pretty much do whatever you want. And there's very few barriers to starting a business. So there's lots of competition. You've got global competition. The internet brings everybody to you. So if you're not thinking about them, if you think your product is all great, and or like my grandma used to say, if you think your product's all that in a bag of chips, forget about it. There's other people out there that are better than you, and there's probably 10 people that are as good as you or maybe better. And guess what? You don't stand out with product or features anymore. It's very hard to differentiate on quality. Think about cars today. I mean, other than the top most expensive brands, but for most consumer vehicles, the quality, the perception of quality is pretty consistent. It's hard to differentiate with quality. So guess what? I noticed this when I watch an ad for cars. They'll show like the radio and they'll say it connects with your phone. Think about that, right? You're buying a $40,000 vehicle and they're selling you that it connects with your phone. I find that very interesting, right? So that tells me that you're differentiating on things that are different. And what happens too is that if you're not treating people the way they want to be treated, right, they don't become your best salespeople. They don't review and rate and tell their friends and share and like and comment and people trust those interactions with your actual customers more than they trust you. They trust them more than your marketing and your salespeople. So your audience is going to go look for those things. So if you're not taking care of your customers and you're giving them what they want when they want, then they're not going to say that in the work on third-party sites, ratings, reviews, all that good stuff. And that's your best salesperson. So you're going to lose that.
Definitely. And then when it comes to sales, you need to be able to attract the customer, like you said, capture their interests. So what, especially in today's world that we live in, what are the interests or what are marketers trying to get at when trying to attract somebody to their business? Is it ease of service? Is it their services itself? Like, what inbound strategies are they using?
Well, marketers are known for trying everything, right? And usually ruining most of them, right? It's not as much fun to get LinkedIn connection requests as it used to be, right? You know when you get the LinkedIn connection request from the person that has a service industry or this service business that generates leads, you know the next thing is going to be an email or an in-mail about,
of course,
you want to buy some leads, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be, you know what you're going to get. So the smart marketers in a book, Inbound Organization, one of the quotes we used was, you determine your strategy, which is how you go to market and how you want to position yourself and the story you want to tell. But your prospects and your customers determine your tactics. They determine where you go and what you do. And that's never going to change. If your customers want chat, if they want in person, if they want to talk to human beings, if they want a face-to-face meeting, whatever it is, right? You need to give it to them. And you can't force it down their throats. And customers come in odd places. I interviewed somebody on my podcast 2 weeks ago that is a metal foundry, really core, old school kind of manufacturing industrial business, like foundry, like making metal stuff. And their biggest lead generator was Facebook. Shocked me. I was shocked. But what they did was they realized that they were looking at the end, right? They were looking for the end product. Like people would go and look and they would say, whoa, that's what I'm looking for. How did you get that? And then they would work back and they were like, well, we helped them get that. So they were able to tell a story in a place that was kind of non-traditional, but their audience responded. And the reason it worked was because it was natural. It was telling the story from their perspective with their voice and their stories and not a list of specifications. If they would have gone on Facebook and said, we're a foundry and we have this machine and we have this process and we make this stuff this fast, nobody would care. But they went and told a story about how they could create something and work backwards. And people said, yeah, I want to create things like that, so I need to work with you. That's totally different than selling a product or selling a service, right? You start with the end and work your way back. And that's what good marketers are doing today. And they're giving their audiences the best opportunities to connect. So inbound marketing is not so much about just throwing content out there, landing pages, ebooks, blog posts. You have to do those things, but it's more about what do they want to see? What is their story, right? And get their ideas and work from their perspective back and then share it with your audience. And that's what people want to hear. So, the best marketers today are building up opportunities for their audience to tell the story, and then they get out of the way.
Going off of that question, what role does transparency play in an inbound organization, and are there things that companies shouldn't share? Well,
this is a regular question we get. You should not share proprietary information or, if it's really critical to the special sauce of your product or of what you do, or if you have procedures or processes that you think really give you competitive advantage. No, But financial information, it's easy to find. I had a client that was a very large publication company. Everybody would know their name. I'm sorry, I can't divulge it, but everybody would know their name. And they had a business service where they were selling really deep insights to corporations and firms. Pretty expensive stuff, pretty deep, really deep analysis. And I said, well, what does your stuff cost? And they told me, and I said, well, is that on your website? And they said, no, we would never put that on our website at all. And as the manager was sitting there telling me, I Googled, name of company, price, and I had it. And I was like, well, there's your price. I know I know, right? So people know. So that's not something you need to worry about. But transparency is important because it starts internally. It's about trust, and it's about trusting your team to be able to absorb the information and make their own decisions, make their own judgments, and not be treated like they aren't responsible enough to handle it. So you need to share that information. And so certainly when you're dealing with individuals with trust, you've got to have transparency. You don't have trust without transparency. And when it comes to your customers, if something goes wrong, you got to deal with it, right? You got to be super transparent and share it up front, because surveys have shown that everybody expects things to go wrong in a relationship at some point. It's how you handle them that matters. So you need to be extraordinarily transparent about pricing and shipping and quality issues, or if problems happen, you need to be really upfront about those things and transparent. And I always default to share versus not share, and you become more honest and you become more real. And you don't hide behind a corporate brand, or you don't hide behind the shield or the name or policy. For heaven forbid, please don't say this is our policy, we can't do this. Nobody wants to hear your policy, nobody cares. So it's transparency leads to trust, and you need that to have relationships, and you need to have those relationships with your people to be able to build the relationships with your customers that you want.
Do you think there's a thing as too much transparency?
I kind of got sick of seeing all the COVID notices on people's websites and emails. That was a little old. No, I mean, there's probably, you could have too much transparency. Yes, you kind of know, right? If somebody says something, you go, yeah, I don't really need to know that. That's probably when it gets too much. But in terms of I think in terms of the process, if you're dealing with people and you're trying to help them solve their problems, you really can't have too much transparency. I'd rather know than not know. And you can sell by communicating in a transparent way what's happening, right? You can show that if you're dealing with an issue and you're very upfront and transparent about it, then you show them that they can trust you in the future, that that's the way you're going to act if it comes up and happens again. So, but if you avoid and you kind of give marketing speak or sales speak or customer service speak kind of stuff, and you make excuses, then that's the way they're going to think you're going to act in the future. So and again, from an internal standpoint, I think you got to tell your people everything. You got to tell them the financials, you got to tell them the plan, the strategy, how they fit. I mean, when I started, I'm old, I'm 54. And when I started working, I was like, I got a job, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, right? Just show me where to go, I'll do it, right? And I don't think people act that way that much anymore. They want purpose, they want a mission, they want to feel like they're making a difference, they want to feel like they're contributing, they want to be growing personally. You can't get that without transparency. If you're not open with people, none of those things happen. So to me, it's transparency, trust. You want trust, you better be transparent.
Yeah, and you talked about being transparent not only with your team but also the customers. But going back to that team, what goes in to creating that strategy? Who are there? Who are the players? Is it, of course, marketing? Is it finance? Are people there? Are legal people there? Who's at that table coming up with the plan?
You missed one big one. Who was the big one you missed?
Marketing, legal, finances, creative, customers.
Your customers should be at that table. You should be talking to your customers, right? It's I can't tell you how many startups I've worked with that think they have this great idea, and you start digging in, and the first thing I do when I talk to a startup is, okay, who's your target audience, And then you're going to say, okay, cut that down by probably 100%, 90% because you're too broad. You think you're going to do this for everybody. You can't. You got to pick a niche. You got to pick a narrow slice of who you're going to help. And then I'm going to go talk to those people. And it's very common that those people say, yeah, we don't really have that problem. Or we don't really, that's not a good idea. We don't really like that. Because when you're in your own bubble, right? Hey, this is a great idea. I would use this. But you've got to get out of it, and you got to talk to customers and find their needs from their perspective. Then you work back. That's always the best strategy. Work backwards. Now, you can certainly have leaders that are looking across markets, that are looking at opportunities. Could be government, regulation, geopolitical. There's all kinds of things you can think about strategically. So clearly, the senior leaders who have the broader view need to be part of that. But I want marketing at that table. I want sales at that table, because they're going to be the groups that really bring the customer to that table. And again, it depends on what kind of product it is. There's obviously operational and product people too. But I think one of the biggest issues of strategy I've seen with clients over the time I've been doing this is that they don't have marketing at that table enough, which excludes the kind of voice of the customer. Then it becomes like, well, we decided we wanted to do this, so sales just go sell it. And sales says, well, I can't sell that. Then you got a problem, right? You got everybody aligned. And that's a big part of what we talk about in the book, is just aligning everybody towards the same goal and the same strategy and getting everybody on board. But yeah, you got to get that customer's got to be in there one way or the other.
Has there ever been a situation or a time where you thought a marketing strategy or an inbound strategy was going to be a total bust, but your customers ended up really loving it?
Well, that's not the question I thought you were going to ask me. I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to be a politician. I'm going to answer the question I want to answer. But I'll get to your question.
By all means, it's your Q&A.
I'll do it back. I'll do two versions of that question. One of the versions I thought you were going to ask me was, some people say they want to have an inbound strategy, and we look at their market and we say, probably not a good classic inbound strategy, right? Typically what would happen there is there's a very limited market with a very small number of really targeted companies that are very easily identifiable. It doesn't make any sense to create a large content strategy to attract lots of people in the top of the funnel and then try to winnow them down into leads and more qualified people. So that's kind of like the classic inbound thing. We would recommend, in that would be more account-based marketing. You would use inbound principles in terms of creating content from their perspectives and things like that. But just go talk to those people, right? Don't try to cast a wide net and hope a few show up. Go talk to them. There's nothing wrong with reaching out to people you know you can help. So go ahead and do it. What's wrong is spamming and blasting everybody in the world with your dumb messages and spam emails and phone calls that nobody wants. Nobody wants that. But if you can really help me, I'll talk to you all day long. So that's a question I wanted to answer. Now I answer your question.
Okay.
Yes, we've seen campaigns where the content just didn't resonate, where you attracted a lot of people up front, and then there was never the conversions you were looking for to actual projects and customers. And it almost always boiled back down to poor kind of persona work, where it was really identifying the target audience, understanding exactly what they wanted to do and what problem they were really solving. And again, once you do that, you can adjust, and then we've seen success. But typically at a high level, we would see where people start a good inbound campaign and really just think about their product, and they're just trying to push it out to the world. Those are the ones that don't usually do quite as well.
Definitely, man. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned earlier that sales and marketing play into this. So what is that ideal relationship between both of those sectors, sales and marketing? Well,
they're kind of two parts of the same process. Marketing's upfront and has kind of a bigger picture. Sales to me is part of this whole customer management, revenue operations I hear people talk about now. And the marketing and sales team needs to be on the same page, and they have to have same goals and overlapping priorities. Because if marketing is attracting one type of person and saying one thing, and sales then gets it and says another, or sales, the cliche situation is always like, well, marketing sends all these leads over and they're all crap, right? That's the classic thing you hear. So you want to avoid that by saying, okay, what is a good lead? Let's define that together. What is a good lead? How do we define it? What does marketing work on? What does sales work on? When do we hand it off? How do we hand it off? What's the expectation when we hand this off? What will you do? What won't you do? We did an experiment with a large client of ours, where they had about 75 salespeople, and the marketing people were sending leads over, and the salespeople were telling me, they were like, yeah, all those leads that come from the website, they're no good. And I was like, well, what do you do? They were like, well, we have time, we follow up. And they were very successful company. So we were like, okay, we'll see how we do here, right? And so we did a little NPS survey with the leads that came in and asked them about the follow-up. And we found out real quick that they weren't following up on a lot of them, and we found out they were actually very good potential projects, and they were losing projects because the salespeople weren't following up on them. That was an example of where you had a disconnect, and that can be marketing's over here working like crazy to generate leads, and sales doesn't have the same priority. You want to make sure everybody's on the same page and aligned. We call it, my co-author Dan Tyler calls it smarketing. We want to be sales and marketing aligned, and but again, it goes beyond that. It's customer success and service. Everybody needs to be aligned on the same mission. But again, marketing can be sales' best friend. I mean, right now, the best salespeople over the last 5 months that are sitting at home have been LinkedIn warriors. They're doing their own live, they're doing Facebook or live, or they're doing Zoom events, or they're sharing content on LinkedIn. And a lot of salespeople that didn't do that, right? They're struggling. Marketing has a role to help equip sales to use those tools and learn how to sell and interact and engage with people directly. And marketing doesn't have to generate every lead. Sales can do it. But they need to learn how to create content and do live events and live meetings. And marketing has a role to help them do that. And again, they should be working hand in hand. And the more they work hand in hand, you'll see that just businesses will take off when they do.
Yes, I definitely agree with everything you had to say. I also believe that marketing and sales do go hand in hand. And like, for example, my dad is a construction worker, and he owns his own business, and he gets a lot of sales, but he wants to get more people to come in. So now he's trying to focus more on his marketing. So I think everything you say, I'm definitely going to tell him that he should do. I'm going to go ahead and ask the final question, and then wrap up this Q&A. What do you think many leaders miss about the importance of marketing?
Oh, I think too many leaders think of marketing as kind of those guys over there that do the website, or they do the trade shows, or they do these events. And those are all things, those are the tactics. But what a good, smart leaders are doing is they're pushing back on their marketing, and they're saying, what are people asking us on our social channels? What are people saying on those review sites? What pages are the most trafficked on our site? What are the biggest questions we're getting? What are the biggest search inquiries we have on our site? What are people talking about? What are people asking? What are people really reacting to? What are we doing that's getting them engaged and excited? They need to have that. Marketing should be able to give them that pulse of what's going on in their industry, in their sector, with their specific customers. And they should also be the ones out there looking down the road saying, here's opportunities for us to create engagement and channels and connections with our customers we don't have now. And I think leaders underestimate the value of marketing and underestimate the importance of building a foundation and a plan and a long-term strategy around their engagement with their target audience and their existing customers. And I think leaders don't push marketing to help engage their existing customers enough. I think leaders leave that often to the sales team or the service team, and marketing should be engaged with marketing to their existing customers as much or more as they're engaged with trying to drive net new business. So too often leaders focus on net new business and not customer lifetime retention or growth with existing customers. The same principles apply. The content you create, you should use inbound principles with your customers. You should engage them, attract them, and continue to show them the value you bring and grow your business with your existing customers. They're your best audience. And I think this is a huge area where too many leaders allow other groups to handle their existing customers. And they get too reactive with customers, and they say, oh, well, they need us, they'll call us, or they'll call the service department, or our salespeople call them once every 6 months. No, your marketing should be just as prioritized for your current customers as they are for your prospects. And I think a lot of startups get that. I think a lot of SaaS companies get that are dealing with recurring revenue, right? You don't want to lose the recurring revenue. I think a lot of product-based or longer sale, more complex sale, they don't, it's not in their DNA quite as much. I think that's a big area where leaders are missing the boat a little bit with marketing.
Well, thank you so much for all of your advice, and thank you for taking the time to do this Q&A and come to our summit. I hope you come back when we do this again.
Thank you.
I will definitely. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for asking me.
Of course. Have a great rest of your night.